in between. Physics, art, and math got us down this path. Historical tales come alive, where science and stories dive. Blended facts with heart, knowledge from the start. Need bridge blues we sing to the future memory. Health and science in the mix. Midbridge got the fix. Complex subjects made
right
clear.
now
Every episode
in ways that we actually acquire
leads the way.
and ways that make me more efficient.
In the world of digital streams, turning knowledge into dreams. Through the tales of old, new stories unfold.
Thank you so much for joining with me. It is truly an honor and a privilege.
MedBits Webcast is a new kind of healthcare media channel to break the silo mentality and foster interdisciplinary thinking. Our mission is to fill that gap and to create a curiosity through different lenses, tapping the passion that guided the historical figures in medicine and bringing present-day groundbreaking research to the front lines. We interview physicians and leaders in the industry about present-day healthcare challenges on our live programming.
Welcome back, everybody. Today, we have a wonderful special guest with us, Dr. Jonathan Bonnet. I am absolutely thrilled about him coming on our show today. The conversation we are going to be having with him, we are diving deep into the topic that so many of you struggle with. What the number on the scale is. What the heck is that number? We are constantly obsessed about that number on the scale. You know, we say, okay, the number is not budging. And to help us unpack the myths, the science, and the truth behind weight, muscle, and health, we have an incredible guest. Joining us is Dr. Jonathan Bonnet, a board-certified physician, and he is in family, sports, obesity, and lifestyle medicine. He's the program director of medical weight loss at Palo Alto VA, and affiliate professor at Stanford, and brings a unique perspective with his background in exercise physiology and public health. Dr. Bonnet has dedicated his career to helping people move beyond the scale into real, lasting health. So, whether you have been frustrated by weight plateaus, confused by the body composition, or just want to know how muscle really works in your favor, you're in the right place. Welcome, Dr. Bonnet. It's an honor to have you with us today.
Thank you, Rajitha. It is an honor to be here.
Thank you. So that being said, as I was saying, right, like especially women, we are so much focused on that number on the scale. The weighing scale is in the bathroom every day, hopping on, checking to see what's happening with that weight. And sometimes it's just creeping up no matter what. You think, okay, I didn't hardly ate anything. What's going on? You only connect to what we are eating and the number on the scale. So why is this number? Is that misleading? The number that frustrates us, we are not moving, we are not, that anytime I see the number on the scale, I get very discouraged. What's behind that?
So I think it's a complicated topic. I think the scale weight can be variable. I think for many of us, it probably can create a sense of anxiety or guilt or shame or joy or whatever that number ends up being. And I think it's important to recognize what it represents. And I think sometimes that's probably the thing that we put a lot of our stock in, and why it can break our day, and it dictates whether we're succeeding or failing. Just measuring mass, right? Anything on the scale, and it'll come up with a number. I mean, it is that it's measuring. It just is saying this is how much, mass or weight that this thing takes up. So I think when you think about it that way, I mean, the scale is not a device that measures things. But I think when we're thinking about the scale, most people are understanding is that action of me, my body weight, my ability to manage my health and life. And I think when you wrap all these other emotional aspects up, it can be very challenging to see the scale not move in a direction that we want. But I think when you're thinking about a scale weight, again, it's not most people are sort of tying the scale number 2 is I'm gaining body fat or I'm losing body fat. In theory, it could be you're gaining muscle mass or lean mass. Oftentimes when you scale, frankly, it's just fluid, right? I mean, you can go drink a bottle of water and hop on the scale and you gained a pound. Like it is a little bit of, I don't want to say it's a finicky thing, but it's not, totally static. And I think usually when we're measuring it, the margin of error that people can see on the scale has a lot of variability. Just from the things that you do day to day, that the scale is going to go up and down and all over the place, and that's okay. And like, it's not trying to lose weight or you're trying to gain weight. It never just goes straight down and never goes straight up. It's hopefully like a reverse stock market for people trying to lose weight, where you don't know why exactly it's doing what it's doing. Hopefully overall it's going down, but some days you're like, wow, it jumped up 2 pounds and then it went down 3 and then up 1, and you're totally confused because you're like, I did everything right yesterday and the scale went up a pound. Like what gives? So I think that can create that sense of angst because the scale doesn't necessarily reflect what you're doing in life. And so I think knowing that the scale has a lot of variability, I think you just need to be careful about how much stock you put in it. I think directionally it's helpful, but it doesn't tell you the most important metric.
Thank you. Thank you for that explanation so that we are not so obsessed with that. So that's, the number on the scale is not a direct measurement of the fat in our body, which that's what primarily we are focusing at. So if someone's weight isn't changing much, but their body is, what might actually be happening with them physiologically?
Yeah, so when you think about the things that typically influence the scale, the things that influence it most are water, for sure, being hydrated versus not, but salts have a huge influence, again, mostly because salt pulls water into the system, more water, more weight. Even glycogen or stored carbohydrates. So if you have a higher amount of glycogen or carbohydrates stored, you pull more water into the body too. And again, all those things push weight up. If you lose body fat or you gain body fat, obviously that can change the scale. If you gain or lose muscle mass, the weight on the scale. Most of us don't think about bone loss on a short-term scale, but all of those things technically are mass that you carry that can influence the scale one way or another. And I think you can run this experiment on yourself, or if anyone is interested. I mean, I've done this personally, but in general, no or gain more than a pound of body fat in a day. So if you ever see a number that's more than one different, it is always related to fluid or carbohydrates or salt. I mean, again, fluid is the thing that is really changing the weight, but it could be as a result of, you went out to eat and it was a really salty restaurant, or you had more carbohydrates than normal, or, you're on a diet and now you ate more carbohydrates and you've refueled your glycogen stores. But it's not body fat, just replaced basically, fluid in this. But I mean, I can tell you personally, I mean, I've woken up in the morning, dehydrated, bathroom, I weighed myself, and then later that same afternoon, same day, I was fully hydrated, maybe overhydrated, had some food to eat, and I was 7 pounds heavier in one day, right? So just one day, and it's much food. So the point being, though, you can have a huge fluctuation in, that was less than 12 hours that caused that. And so if you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm succeeding or failing day to day because my weight changed a pound, I mean, there are just so many factors that influence that, that it's really tough to actually put too much stock in it. But I think the one suggestion I have for people who do want to have some objective metric, the best way to do it, in my opinion anyway, would be to weigh yourself the same time every day, in the morning, after you wake up, before you consume any liquids, before you eat anything, after you go to the bathroom. So you are in the most consistent same state. And then the weight you get is probably more reflective of that. But again, it's still going to be subject to all the things I just told you. But I think the other thing that you can do if you really are scientific about this, if you took each weight over the last 7 days and you basically do a rolling average, so each 7th day you add one new weight and then you drop the one from 7 days ago, you'll get a pretty good idea of what your true weight actually is. But again, any one of those single weights is totally subject to being wrong. But if you have enough of them, you can sort of average out and actually see, hey, my overall trajectory is down, even though day to day it's up 3, down 2, up 5, down 1, because then it just feels like a lot of people feel I'm succeeding or failing based on what my number is tomorrow. And again, you can do everything right. You can work out, eat great, be super hydrated, sleep well, weight goes up a pound, and you think, wow, this program's not working, I'm failing. And that couldn't be further from the truth. So again, I think that's when you want to be careful about putting too much, quite, literal or figurative, I guess I should say, weight on the scale.
Oh, wow. That's very, very good way of looking at it that way, because overnight, even though I'm weighing myself every day at the same time, as soon as, I wake up, go use the bathroom and all of that, still there might be a fluctuation of 1 or 2 pounds going up. Then that could be something else. It's not really the fat gain overnight. And in order for us to look at it more, objectively, maybe, track throughout a week or two and see how it's moving. That's a better way of looking at it from what you're saying.
Yeah, and I think, I'm not sure if I actually answered your initial question, but if you see the scale, could it go up and down? I mean, it totally could, right? What if you're losing weight or losing body fat, but you're gaining muscle mass? I mean, if you did that, which is hard to do, but if you did, your scale weight would read exactly the same. But what you would notice is that muscle is denser than fat, so it takes up less pound of fat and a pound of muscle. The fat would be much larger in space. Often people will say, I haven't lost any, my clothes are fitting a lot better, like they're looser, right? Yourself. And again, you'll have the visual appearance of even quote unquote looking better, again, because again, muscle mass is generally a good thing to have, and body fat is the thing that most people are trying to avoid. But you can be a smaller version of yourself at the same weight if you actually had muscle mass versus fat mass. And again, the scale would show you nothing, right? And so I think that's another example of how you would get fooled that, oh my gosh, this program's not working. But clearly you're getting feedback from your body and using other ways to sort of assess that, hey, like my body is changing, it's different.
So that, brings up, so why should someone care so much about fat to muscle ratio than just the total body weight?
It's a great question. I think there are a variety of reasons I think most people would throw out there. I think probably the most obvious one to many people is in general. I mean, we're probably a vain society that cares about appearances. So I think for many people, they say, hey, I want to look good, right? And so again, whether or not it's right or wrong, I mean, society actually does determine what often is perceived as beauty, because back in hundreds of years ago, like it was actually very beautiful to be larger, right? Because it represented money and status. And so actually more obesity was actually like a very positive trait to have in terms of culture and society. Now, again, we could argue what society's values are today. I think the concern from a health perspective, which I think we can speak objectively about, whether that's good or bad or indifferent, is that obesity can lead to a lot of comorbid problems that are really detrimental to the body. So that excess energy fat is actually really not a problem. The one issue you can have is that if there's too much mass, then you do put extra stress on joints. So nips or knees, hips, ankles, back, all of those things are subject to whatever it is that you weigh, whether it's muscle or fat. But in general, the problem is when we gain more fat in our system than our bodies are able to tolerate, you actually start having fat to the fat cells because they're already totally full of fatty acids and triglycerides. But now you have fat spilling into other places where it's not supposed to be. So you have fat now in your muscle cells, which is not good, which is really what creates that sort of, I mean, the term is insulin resistance, but it just makes it so your body's not able to get rid of like carbohydrates or blood sugar well. That fat spills into your pancreas, which can impair its ability to, again, manage blood sugar. It can spill into the liver, which causes elevated cholesterol and other lipid problems, which is obviously not a good thing. And it can get to places. So you see blood pressure go up for sleep apnea, 13 different kinds of cancers. So you start to get all these other manifestations of the excess body weight. That's not just, hey, I don't like how it looks, or hey, I've got some knee pain because of this. You actually start to get internal organ derangement. They measure all the negative health consequences of obesity. So when that starts to happen, obviously you want to care about that, and we do when we do what we can to fix it. But then the good part is that the majority of it is very fixable and often reversible with a good weight loss program or reducing body fat. All of those things can get better, and I think it's one of the reasons I love the job that I'm in, is that it's helping people really restore their health and then hopefully restore their lives, because many people they may be told they have high blood pressure and high cholesterol and prediabetes or diabetes and sleep apnea and low back pain, and I mean the list goes on and on and on. But fundamentally, the majority of those problems are all driven by excess energy and obesity. And if you actually address obesity, all of those things start to get better at the same time. So instead of having 2 blood pressure pills and a cholesterol pill and 2 whether you're using medication, surgeries, or lifestyle, if you're successful in helping people lose weight, all of those problems get better at once, which is magic, right? I mean, all of this, it's not, I have 7 problems. I have 1 problem that causes 7 issues in different systems. So I think when you think about it that way, one, it's important to be able to manage our weight, because really it's probably one of the keys to all the chronic disease that exists.
Thank you for that. And how does having more muscle help someone lose fat or maintain a healthy weight for a long period of time?
Yeah, so muscle is totally our friend. I'm sure there are many women out there who think, well, I don't want to get big and bulky and I don't want to be a bodybuilder. And I hear you. And you know what? I promise you, unless you're taking exogenous testosterone or growth hormone or something else, you just don't have the right hormones and you don't have the right environment to actually do that. And I mean, I will use myself as an easy example here. I mean, I lift really heavy weights. I've been doing it for 20 years. I like to think I'm getting bigger, faster, stronger. I try and eat plenty to do that. And I'm a guy, like a relatively younger guy. And so if anybody could and should be able to do that, I should be able to totally get huge. And I struggle with that, even being able to put on muscle mass myself, given that's my goal and that's what I'm a male. And so I just have better hormone balance to be able to promise any woman out there, you don't have to worry about getting too big or growing too much muscle. In fact, I would challenge you that any muscle you can grow is really, really helpful and really valuable. Muscle's good for a variety of things. I mean, so one, it's very metabolically active. So muscle's about 3 times as metabolically active as fat. So every pound of muscle burns about 6 calories extra per day, calories per pound per day. So muscle is 3 times. So if you added 60 pounds of muscles, or sorry, 60 pounds of muscle, if you added 10 pounds of muscle, you would burn an additional 60 calories every single day. So it's one of the few ways you can actually increase your metabolism, like from a resting metabolic rate, is how much lean mass you have. So one, muscle is very good because it helps you burn calories and helps you maintain a lower weight. It's also probably very protective for gaining weight because, again, it is very metabolically active. Muscle is also the place where you put blood sugar. So when you eat carbohydrates that down, the primary place you're storing that is in your liver and your muscles. And so your muscles use it and they burn it for energy right away. So they are the sinks where all of those carbohydrates typically get deposited. So the more muscle mass you have, the more carbohydrates you can store, and the better your body can put those away so that sugar doesn't cause problems in vessels and other areas. Obviously, muscle is very important for structure and being able to look good, but actually being able to move in the world, right? Be able to do the things people want to do, to travel, to move, to explore, to pick their children up off the ground, right? To do most activities that you want to do in life, muscle is the currency that allows you to do it, right? And the more muscle you have, the more you can support joints. So people think, oh, I've got knee pain, so I don't want to do exercises because my knee will hurt. Well, the way you offload a joint, whether that's a knee, a foot, a hip, a back, is to have muscle in it. So if you're using the muscles for support, then you don't have to rely on the joint strain or the torque on the joint to actually provide stability. So the more muscle mass you have, in theory, the more stable and structured and supported your whole skeletal system is. Not to mention, again, you can just move through the world a whole lot easier, right? And so again, I think a lot of the times muscle is good for many, many things. But I think when you think about all the good things it does, I mean, you really, there's no 9-year-old who said, I wish, I didn't have so much muscle mass, right? Because it's something that you lose over time. So it is difficult to gain it. It also takes work even just to try and maintain it. And people typically lose anywhere from 3 to 8% of their muscle mass per decade, really after the age of 30. So if you do the math on that, from the time you're like 30 to the time you're 80 or 90, I mean, you've lost half of your muscle mass if you haven't really done something about it. So that's something to lose. And again, when you think about the long-term health of people, this is where people lose independence, right? People are not able to live by themselves anymore when they can't get up out of a chair, right? When they can't, or they can't get into a car, right? Once you lose those physical abilities, I mean, you are reliant on someone else or being in a facility to manage this for you. So again, muscle really is the thing that, one, makes you feel good, function well, but also keeps you healthy and independent, which again, I think are super important for long-term health.
Oh, wow. You rounded up a whole bunch of things, how muscle helps us. So in midlife for women, all of a sudden you see a shift in weight, increase in weight, decrease in strength, energy. Um, there comes to a point where you can't even carry the grocery bags or even open the bottle lids. It's so difficult because there's not much energy. And some of these people never had gone to the gym or lifted weights ever before. How can they incorporate that? And also, like in the hospital, we see this all the time, as you just mentioned. They're living independently, and all of a sudden, some balance is off. They fall down and then fracture brittle bones. Sometimes we see incidental fractures, which they didn't even know they had it. And then that's it. They lose their independence. They have to go to a facility, to live there after living by themselves so independently for so many years. So how can they start building this up when they're not even used to it? And, they're very shy. They don't want to go and to the gym with the added responsibilities. How can they fit this building up some muscle into their life? Any practical strategies?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really important question. I think the good news I have for everyone is that it's never too early and it's also never too late. Exercise program. So even if you've done nothing for 50 years or 7 years or however many years it's been, today's thing is that the body's very adaptable and you can still get tremendous benefits even when you start lifting late in life. And they've actually done studies with 90-year-olds and they actually put them on a training program. And it turns out even a 90-year-old can be like someone in their 20s or 30s, relative percentage of muscle mass and strength. Now, again, on an much smaller because they have just much less muscle mass than a younger person would, but the gains you can make in strength and muscle, like hypertrophy and muscle mass, are comparable. Start at any time, which I think is the important. And again, I think for most people, it's about starting easy and simple, right? This is not, hey, you got to go to the gym for 2 hours, 5 days a week. First it's 2 days per week. I think ideally working up to 3. But it can look like a lot of different things. And so it can be body weight exercises, particularly at the beginning. Like you don't have to use dumbbells or barbells or machines if you find them intimidating. But there are lots of different opportunities and options you have. And there's plenty of home workout programs at all. You can buy resistance bands, which are pretty inexpensive, and they can provide a nice resistance and load for you. And then obviously if you have access to a gym or want to go to a gym, I mean, obviously there's trainers and people who can walk you through a workout. There's machines, which I think are very user-friendly typically, and they help sort of put you in a good form and position to be able to do things, even if you're, not super. You can also progress over time. So if you choose to use dumbbells or barbells or anything, I mean, there's a whole spectrum of options for people no matter what level you're at. And so I think just start somewhere. Don't get overwhelmed and think you got to do everything in a day, but even doing something little. I mean, you can do wall push-ups, you can do body weight squats in house, And again, I think, and you can do some core work. So I think you can start to do things just very simply without feeling like, hey, I'm going to spend an hour. It's either an hour or nothing, right? It can be 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. Build that up over time. So I think just encouraging people to explore. Most people, it's not even on their radar. And I think historically, men probably predisposed to actually doing weightlifting, and women, I feel like, are more predisposed to cardio. And both are good, and you need both of them. But again, this is being very generic, but I think many men probably need to do more cardio, and many women need to do more weights. And again, I think that's the perception of, I got to do cardio to stay fit, or, stay trim, and I do weights to bulk up and get big. Guys want to get big, and girls, maybe don't want to get as big. But I think that is a misconception. Like, you're not going to get huge lifting weights. You're going to get strong, right? Unless you're food, or again, you're, using hormones or something, you're not going to get much bigger, but you will get much stronger. And I think when you talked about falls and risks of things like that, balance is important, and you can train that. But I'd say probably still the bigger driver of why people have falls and have fractures is because of weakness, and also just reaction time and ability. So if you're thinking about, if you're walking and you trip on your own feet or whatever, the first thing you do is take a step and then try to absorb the force to prevent yourself from falling. Or you grab onto a handrail, and if you can grab onto the handrail and hold on, you don't fall. So there is still a very strong strength component that is related to falls, in addition to just perhaps the neuromotor skills of being able to balance and correct. Like, you still have to have the strength and stability to correct if you do have a mistake or tumble. So again, it does really come back to strength. And I think we frame this initially with weight and body, or like muscle mass. I mean, it turns out the most important predictor is strength, but strength is very tightly correlated to muscle mass. So even if you don't build a lot of muscle, you will get stronger lifting weights and working out. And that is actually the most important thing, because that is the functional of the muscle. And so if you have that, you have the functional part, which is, again, what you need for the health aspect of having a long, healthy life.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so we can start at any age. It's not too early, not too late. We can still build the muscle and start off with just own body weight. Even if we don't feel comfortable going into the gym, because when you're not used to it, it's very intimidating when you see all these guys lifting heavy weights, and you're trying to figure out what to do in the gym. So yeah, and talking about that, going to the gym, I see, quite a few women there. That's all they do, cardio, all the time. I've never seen them do weights or anything. They're skinny on these cardio machines for a couple hours at a time. So is just cardio good enough?
Well, the short answer is it's better than nothing, but it is not optimal. So, and I'm not here to disparage cardio. Cardio is super important and does many, many wonderful things for your health, mortality, your heart, and everything else, and even your brain cognitively. So to me, this is never an either or. It's like, oh, I can only pick one. It's no, you can pick both. And I would encourage you to do both. It's fine if you love cardio and that's your primary thing you want to do. And maybe you really don't like doing weights. And I get that. So then it's like, what is the bare minimum I can do to just, check the box and still get health benefits? But I'm not going to be at the gym 5 days lifting weights. And I think that's totally fine. But again, I think it still is the recognition that the most value you get comes from the initial amount that you do. So if you don't like doing cardio at all, the first hour a week that you do cardio is impactful for your health, 7, 8, or 9, or 10. So there is diminishing what it is that you do. So the first resistance training session you do, even if it's only 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, is incredibly impactful for your muscle mass, and just for your overall strength. And you don't have to do a ton. Like, you can do relatively short, probably a 30-minute full body workout, twice a week. I mean, but even starting at once a week, just doing something, I think, can get people moving. And I think what you find is that, one, you will get stronger. So it's really exciting to say, hey, I can, lift more weight than I did last time. And for me, it builds confidence, right? If you can pick this heavy thing up, well, hey, guess what? It's way easier to walk around with the backpack or traveling. So you actually start to, and it feels easy to walk upstairs, right? It's not like a challenge and you're huffing and puffing. You're like, wow, I have the strength to do this. So I think, again, when you realize the things it starts to provide in your life, that's very, very reinforcing for people to say, wow, you know what? This is worth my time. Maybe it's not my favorite thing to do, but like, I can see that it's actually changing my ability to move in the world. And so I think when you recognize that, then you're like, okay, like I should keep doing this. Like I feel strong, I feel confident. Maybe your clothes are fitting better, maybe not. But again, you'll still notice the structural and functional improvements. And so I think that's a really important part. And I think just at the gym, I mean, again, I know it can be an intimidating thing. I mean, even when I started to go to the gym, it was intimidating because you're new and you don't know what's going on. And all these other people have been here for, weeks and months and years. And, they seem like they know what they're doing. I can tell you, having been at the gym for, 20 plus years at this point, I look around and I would say less than 1% of people actually know what they're doing. And I'm in that 1% sometimes too. And whether that's related to, having really good form or having good exercise selection or like doing things like optimally, very few people are doing anything totally correct. Almost no one. And so if you feel like you're not doing something, you're probably right. But also I'd say I'm not doing everything correct. And I should know better and I should do better. But I think also many other people there too, even who you think, oh man, they really are an expert. Oftentimes there are many things that they could even be improving as well. So I think when you realize, hey, we're all just in here trying to do the best we can, with the knowledge that we have, and that, no one's here doing this right. Like we're all still kind of doing, making mistakes and things. It can feel a little bit less intimidating because you're just like everybody else, right? Even if you are new. And I think the nice part is if you can be curious and open, there are many people who are more than happy to share whatever gym advice that they have to give. And you can always work with, trainers or therapists or other people too, to hopefully feel a little bit more welcomed and included. Because people actually are quite nice, even though they may seem intimidating at the gym. But if you actually talk to them, they're just like regular people everywhere else too. And it's like an activity that you can share and you can chat about. So it can actually turn into, again, a nice community and even a source of fun, right? You can do it with your friends or even have a pal that you can go to the gym with. You can laugh at yourselves and you can have fun. And again, so I think it can feel intimidating, but at least give it a try and also just realize that, none of these other people are doing it right either. So I'm in good, you're going to learn, which I think is the fun part. Like you're going to learn, you're going to get better. And that's really exciting to see you develop and hone because it takes a lot of time. And I can tell you, I've been lifting for 20 years and I mean, I feel like my squat form is still not perfect. Like I still feel like I'm tweaking things and modifying things and trying things differently. So even if you feel like, wow, I can't do this, just realize, I mean, there is a huge amount of time and energy and effort that goes into changing our movement patterns and body function. So again, it's just like a nice opportunity. It's like learning an instrument else. So I think I would encourage people to embrace the challenge, do your best to not hate the gym, and do some things. And that can be picking a favorite exercise or a machine or a favorite body part that you really want to work on. Like you should get to enjoy that, even if it's not the quote unquote optimal program. So I'm all for building that into whatever people's workouts look like.
Thank you. So it's not really, you have to be sitting in the gym, for a couple hours at a time. It's even 30 minutes of workout where you can get in, use a good form, do it, and, go in there with confidence, and build a community over there. So, yeah, that's a great advice. Can you share like combination of strength training and cardio? If somebody wants to balance between the two, how much of cardio they should be doing in a week, and how much of strength training?
Yeah, so I mean, there's many different ways you can look at that question. I'd say as much as you can. As people, time is going to be their barrier. So I mean, we can talk about what the recommendations are. I mean, I think doing cardio probably 5 days a week is probably optimal in terms of how much. I mean, again, the recommendations are 150 to 300 minutes of moderate intensity cardio exercise per week. And you could divide that up essentially however you wanted. It's probably preferable to divide it up into at least 2 to 3 or 4 sessions. Again, because, if you're thinking, well, how am I going to get to 150 minutes? It would be 30 minutes, 5 days a week. If you're going to get to 300 minutes, that's an hour, 5 days a week. So again, that starts to become a big time commitment for people. And again, I would not encourage anyone to start there. Like I would start way, way lower than what is a goal that I want to work up to over months to get to be able to do that. And so I think that can be a starting point is super low. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 2 minutes. I mean, wherever you're at is, I think, where you do it, right? The worst thing you can do is go and get hurt, right? Because that means you're not going to work out at all once you're injured. So, and gradually progressing is way more important. Getting your form down than like trying to meet these minutes. Because again, if your mechanics aren't good, I mean, you will get injured, and that's like the worst thing that you could do in terms of exercise. When you're talking about strength training, I mean, again, the recommendations are 2 times a week. Again, I'm probably in the camp of 2 to 3 times a week, and there's some literature to suggest that the third round is helpful too. For most people, though, that can be look a variety of ways. So it can be a full body routine where you just do, one exercise for, your upper body, like a pushing movement, an upper body pulling movement, and like a lower body movement, like a squat or a deadlift or something. Or you can do you can work your upper body one day because you want to lift your biceps and your triceps, and then you can do your lower body one day. You can go back to the upper body, and vice versa. So there's a lot of different ways you can come for people. And again, I think the goal really is to build balance, strength, and symmetry overall. So the way that I typically will teach it to people is that in general, across your week, you want to be doing at least one exercise that is like a pushing movement. So something you would push up like over your head, like a vertical pulling movement. So if you push something up, like a shoulder press, you would pull something down, like a lateral pull down or a chin up or a hang or something. You would do a horizontal upper body movement. So you'd push you like a push up, or a barbell bench press or dumbbell bench, which would be like a row. So then you're balancing opposing muscles. So you got your pec muscles pushing out, and you got your lat muscles and rhomboids and traps pulling back in. And so those would be your 4 primary upper body movements, again, in the horizontal plane, out towards you. And then for lower body, I mean, doing some kind of like squat movement, whether that's just a squat, a leg press, it could be a lunge, but something where you're kind of sitting down in space is a good, your glutes, your quads, and it is a very functional life. And then some kind of what we would call like a hip hinging movement. And so this can be something like a deadlift or a good morning, but it's basically kind of like the movement of bending over. So you hinge at your hip instead of sitting down, like in a vertical sense, you're sort of folding forward, like you're picking something up off the ground. And so again, these are like very functional things of like down, you want to be able to pick some ground, push something overhead, up, or push something away from you or pull it back towards you. You don't have to memorize all the muscles and all the muscle groups. You can really just think of like what are functional movements in life, and then sort of pick some exercise, whether it's a machine or dumbbells or something that mimics it. And so that to me would be a nicely balanced program. And again, you're just going through the motions up and down. But that's where I would, so again, I would first work on movement patterns, and then I would work on more loaded resistance training. But again, to start, you could just pick one upper body movement that's a pushing and one upper movement, and you could start with a squat. I think that would be a very nicely balanced program. And then it's an easy way to begin, and then sort of add repetitions or add resistance as you feel more comfortable, and then add in those other movements over time when you sort of more engage with the program, other tasks.
Wow, that's very well explained. Thank you. Thank you very much on that. So since, as we were talking about, the number on the scale does not give a whole lot of information because it's the whole body mass. How about the other numbers? Do we need to monitor, like hip weight ratio, heart rate variability? Can you share some information on that? Like grip strength. What are we looking at these numbers to kind of see how we are progressing?
Yeah, so I think it depends what you're trying to track. I mean, there are a lot of opportunities to track a whole variety of metrics. Biomarkers, I mean, there can be everything from labs that you can draw. I mean, you can measure your blood pressure. I mean, I think when you're thinking about like what is the feedback you're getting for like, a muscle or like a workout or training program. Again, I think the things that most people would say are like measurements that people are using to sort of of, mortality or health benefits. People would use something called like the VO2 max, which is like the maximum in your body can use at one time. And so this would be like an aerobic or a cardio metric that you can measure. I mean, it's not the easiest thing to do. There are tests that you can estimate it from. But the fitter you get in general, the higher your VO2 max is going to go. So it can be one back. But again, the number itself, is helpful because it, again, gives you a marker. But the marker, it's the real value of the health is the work that you do to get there, right? So we know that people who have a high VO2 max have a very low likelihood of dying from anything or any cause. But it's not necessarily because they have a high VO2 max. You can't have a high VO2 max and not be a very functional, fit person, right? So in order to be a fit, functional person, you will get a high VO2 max. Max by itself isn't necessarily the metric that matters most. It's just one measure that we have of it. But you're going to have balance. You're going to have to be able to support your body. You're going to have to be able to move, and you're going to have to be in pretty good cardiovascular shape to get a high VO2 max. And it turns out all those things do predict health and mortality. So if you wanted an aerobic metric, I mean, that is one. It's not easy to measure though. Do like a 3-minute step test, or you can do a 6-minute walk test to estimate it. But again, I think most people don't need to worry too much about them. I mean, if you want to get into the nitty gritty and nuances of, biohacking and stats and follow your data, I mean, I think that's totally fun and can be great. But I think for the person out there who's like, hey, I'm just trying to exercise, like, oh, I got to get my VO2 max. What does that even mean? I would say don't even worry about any of that stuff. I mean, you're just going to see in the gym that, wow, I can walk at a higher pace, or I can walk at a higher incline. I don't feel as tired. It's easier for me to go upstairs. It's easier for me to walk half a mile. So you're just going to get automatic feedback that, wow, I can do more. I can do more work, whether that's intensity, distance, time, number of days, and you will just experience that. And you don't need to track anything. You're just going to know that because you're like, wow, I walked farther than I did yesterday. I think when you're talking about muscle mass, again, stack is where you're gonna be like, wow, I can do, 2 extra repetitions of push-ups. You're gonna see, wow, I can do more than I did before. Same thing if you're at a gym and you're using a machine, you change the selector pin on the machine. You're like, wow, instead of doing 32, I'm doing 45 pounds today, and I can do the same number of repetitions. So you're getting stronger, right? And so those to me are the feedbacks that I think are easy and free without having to go through fancy measurements and metrics. I mean, again, you can use a hand dynamometer, which is what you were talking about. So you could test grip strength, and they've done that in research. It's a very, very good predictor of health and mortality. It's not because you should be going to the gym and just training grip strength all day. The reason grip strength is a good predictor is that it allows you to hold on to anything, right? So if you're deadlifting and holding onto a barbell, or you're hanging on to, a pole or something, or grabbing a handrail, it turns out grip strength is really important for life, right? To be able to open that jar you talked about. But it's not because you're training grip strength. It's because grip strength is required for every muscle movement that you do in exercise, right? You have to hold on to the handles, or hold on to the dumbbell, or hold on to the barbell to actually move it. So again, just by nature, it's going to get stronger, with you over time. So there are many other health metrics which we can talk about or not. I mean, you can track your heart rate variability. You could track your resting heart rate. You could track a whole slew of other metrics related to health, whether that's glucose or blood pressure or everything else. But again, I think those are, to me, would be secondary, tertiary things for people who are really interested in that space. I think, again, for most people, really should be focusing on function and also just recognizing that, hey, you're able to do more work than you could previously. Very obvious. So I think those would be the things that I'd be, watching. And again, if you're talking about how are we going to track our weight, again, there's nothing wrong with using a scale, but again, it's not going to tell you the whole story if you're doing a lot of strength training and you are building muscle mass. So, I mean, personally, I have a scale, I use it. I don't find the percentage body fat on those scales to be very accurate, so I totally disregard them. I think percent body fat is really important, and that would be way more valuable than just a scale number. There are other ways you can estimate that. There's like bioelectric impedance, there's devices you stand on, there's devices you hold, and they'll give you some estimate of body fat. But again, I wouldn't overfixate on that either. There's, again, huge variability in body fat based on hydrogens. So again, you can also cheat the test, by being overly hydrated, or you can also be underhydrated and it gives you a false reading. I personally actually just like circumference measurements. And so you can do like waist or hip circumference measurements just generally. Doing strength training, I mean, you can do circumference around everything: your arms, your biceps, triceps, chest, back, abdomen, thighs, really anything. And that will give you a better idea of, like, again, how much space you're taking up. So if you're building muscle, I mean, hopefully your muscle is getting bigger, but if you're losing weight and building muscle at the same time, those circumference measures will get smaller, even though your scale weight is not changing. So those are obviously good metrics. And then if people want to be, the gold standard is to use what's called a DEXA machine, because that can give you regular body fat. It can give you visceral body fat, which is the fat inside your abdomen and in those organs we talked about earlier. That's the really bad from a health standpoint. So you can actually image that and see that on a DEXA scan. The DEXA gives you skeletal muscle mass, but also so those would be other good metrics to have. And we didn't even talk about all the good things exercise does for bones, particularly for men, but certainly women are a bit higher risk just because you lose all your estrogen once you go through menopause. And so you're very subject to having a lot of bone breakdown, osteopenia, osteoporosis. The single best thing you can do to your bones, I mean, because your bone health gets set pretty early on in like your teens, early 20s. So that's basically your peak bone mass, and then it's all downhill from there. But the way you stimulate bone is, I mean, you need to have your calcium and vitamin D, but you also have to have stimulus for bone. So bone needs a mechanical stimulus to sort of rebuild itself. So how do you apply a mechanical stimulus to bone? You use your muscles and have pull on it, and you resistance train. So resistance training actually is the way to help preserve bone structure across the lifespan as well. So again, getting back to like, what are all the good things that exercise and weightlifting and muscle does? It helps maintain your bone mass. When your bone mass is low, this is how you get fractures and have other issues too. And this is where you start to see even the spine starts to basically collapse. You start to see people bending forward. I mean, their bones are literally falling apart essentially, and not able to actually maintain integrity anymore. So again, just another example of how valuable exercise can be. But again, something else you could also be tracking and monitoring, because many women probably have had a DEXA scan, and they'll tell you where your bone density lies. And again, it's really difficult to increase bone density significantly. You can definitely help plateau it from going down further, which again is probably the most measure getting older.
Thank you. So instead of focusing on the numbers and all that, just, have that awareness, are you gradually, able to do more and challenge yourself with adding on a little more weight. And again, strength training is the key to, the entire body health and also the bones because especially women, as their bones get brittle with the decline in estrogen, that gets more challenging. Same thing with the muscle mass. So strength training is the way to go, along with cardio. But yeah, increasing the strength.
Yeah, and cardio is good too. I mean, it is still an impact exercise, so it does still load bones. So I don't want to say that you don't do cardio and just do strength. Strength training is a much stronger stimulus applied to bones. But you can even just jump, like jumping up and down is actually a very good way to do mechanical strength. And again, it's your whole body weight that you're doing. So there are a variety of ways you can do it. But I mean, again, the take home here should be all these different kinds of exercise are good. It's not, hey, I need to do one versus the other. You want to have a balanced program, and you want to get each of the different types of movements or activities.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Bonnet, for your time here and explaining to us in detail about all the different ways to exercise and keep ourselves healthy, strong, and fit.
It's been a pleasure. I've enjoyed our conversation, and yeah, I think there's so much fun that programming, and again, I'm sure not everyone shares my love and passion for it, but I think you will find that it will make you feel better, that even if you don't like it, that you realize it's worth it. And so I think that's the hardest part, is just getting over that initial hurdle, because it is really hard to get in shape, and it can be very intimidating. But I think once you get over that, man, you just feel so much better. And you're like, wow, why would I not exercise? Like, it makes me feel so good that like, I'm just going to do it innately because of, the value it brings to my life today. And I think that's one of the messages I think in lifestyle medicine we don't sell as much is it's not, hey, you should exercise and muscle mass. last in 50 years, or, you don't want to have a heart attack, 15 years from now. You want to feel good now. You want to look good now. You want to function now, like you now, and do the things that you enjoy. And again, exercise is only going to all of those things and make your life much more enjoyable today and tomorrow. So again, that's the way I would sell it, is I exercise because it makes me happy, because, of all these wonderful health things it does. And so I think when you can get through that initial, challenging period to the point of adjusted to it, it is such a magical thing. Changes your own perception, brain, attitude, outlook, but function, which I think, again, is what you care about at the end of the day, of living a good life, not just a long one. And again, I would, posit the single best way to being able to do that.
Great. Thank you very much for that.
Sure. So definitely happy to chat about exercise anytime. But yeah, I think start small for all those people out there. You don't have to run a marathon ever. But you could certainly take a little walk around your neighborhood today, or, body weight squats or push-ups, and challenge yourself a little bit.
We are retelling their stories through our patented designs that can be worn on scrubs, t-shirts, printed on conference bags, and endless other promotional materials. Daily Wear for Medicine is the first ever of its kind to create curiosity in medicine through visual art. We at MedBricks are celebrating unsung heroes of the past who made enormous contributions to the field of medicine through our unique campaign called Daily Wear for Medicine. You can wear it, carry it, and give it.